All right, shalom, shalom. And first and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakakodash. A double honors to the apostles, elders at great millstones. Salutations to your Akin that's out there doing the work of truth and sincerity. All right, so the name of this lesson is Don't Be Stubborn. All right, compromise for the Lord's purpose. All right, and basically have trust and faith in the Lord. All right, through whatever battle that you're going through. Okay, and the example that we're pulling from is Saul's first transgression. All right, he wasn't into his rulership maybe 2 years, and already he had failed, to meet the requirements to please the Lord. All right, which, he didn't follow the commandment. All right, he hasted. Okay, he hasted, and he made a decision, and a regrettable decision, which was pretty much a downward spiral towards him losing the kingdom. All right, and pretty much, uh, you know, we pretty much learned a lot from this, but um, one thing that we also learned is that he was very new into his rulership, and immediately, though he was king, he, he lacked trust in the Lord. All right, he was pretty much an upstart. Okay, not too much experience, um, very new to, leadership. Of course, he's already a man of valor, already a man of war, but still, he still, as the scriptures say, for we all fall short of the glory. And this ain't to shame Saul because everybody is doing the will of the Heavenly Father. But we learn from his situation, and during this time, he was pretty much stubborn when it comes to judgment, when it came to discretion, when it came to keeping order. And we're going to start off with 1 Samuel 13, 1 through 13. All right. And Lord willing, this lesson is edifying. Again, this is the first part of a 3-part series. And basically what we're doing is focusing on Saul's transgression. All right. In correlation to the house of Saul, and basically how they go off, and not too deeply, but we you pretty much brush the surface. All right, so don't be stubborn, compromise for the Lord's purpose, and that's basically another way of saying don't be insubordinate, which which Saul he was insubordinate. All right, meaning he was willful. Okay, another word is mule-ish, mule, like a mule. All right, you can't break a mule. All right, and in a sense, you couldn't break Saul's his ignorance. Okay, and it's for you, brothers, as leaders, as potential leaders, as potential elders, to focus, and follow the process. All right, which Saul, that's what he didn't do. He didn't follow that process, and we're gonna find it out as we begin to read. All right, he was stubborn, he was pettish. All right, pettish. Okay, Lord willing, post-production, I'll be posting these up. All right, also stiff-necked. In the house of Israel, you Israelites, you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, you're known to be stiff-necked people. Okay, all right. So willful, or showing a stubborn and determined intention to do as one wants, regardless of the consequences and effects. All right, so we'll get into the story, and we'll pretty much read into it. I guess I already hit you with the spoiler alert. So this is 1 Samuel 13 and 1. It says, Saul reigned 1 year, and when he had reigned 2 years over Israel, Saul chose him 3,000 men of Israel, whereof 2,000 were with Saul in Michmash and in Mount Bethel, and 1,000 were with Jonathan, all right, and Gibeah of Benjamin, all right, which Jonathan is the son of Saul, okay. And also we're going to learn how the spirit was dealing with Jonathan, and how the spirit rejected Saul, okay. And Salakia for the spoiler alerts, but the Lord willing, this is edifying. So Salakia, it says with Jonathan, it says, and 1,000 were with Jonathan and Gibeah of Benjamin, and the rest of the people he sent every man to his tent. And Jonathan smote the garrison of the Philistines that was in Geba, and the Philistines heard of it, And Saul blew the trumpet throughout all the land, saying, "Let the Hebrews hear." All right? Because they had to gear up, they had to get ready. Okay? And this is an ongoing war, with us basically taking over the promised land through Joshua and Caleb. All right? And trying to maintain ourselves and sustain ourselves. This ongoing world war with the Hamites, which are the tribe of Philistine. Okay? So it says, in all Israel heard say that Saul had smitten a garrison of the Philistines, right? So from this point on, it's on. We got to go to war with these Philistines, all right? All right, and like I said, it's perpetual, okay? So it says, in that Israel also had an abomination with the Philistines, all right? And the people were called together after Saul to Gilgal, all right? And the Philistines gathered, which is part of the curse. The Philistines, these Hamitic nations, were a thorn in our side. Pretty much took on the same customs as them, all right? But not all of us, just certain Israelites, all right? It says, Salaki, it says, and the Philistines gathered themselves together to fight with Israel, 30,000 chariots and 6,000 horsemen, and people as the sand which is on the sea shore in multitude, all right? And they came up and pitched in Michmash eastward from Beth Aven, all right? So here you go, the Philistines, they 30,000 deep, okay? And so you're about to see the reaction on Israel, all right? Which, it's a lot to learn from this, all right? It says, when the men of Israel saw that they were in the strait, for the people were distressed, then the people did hide themselves in caves and in thickets and in rocks and in high places and in pits, all right? So when they seen these 30,000 soldiers and these foot soldiers as the sand of the sea, they immediately got afraid, all right? So they hid themselves, okay? And the lesson that we're supposed to learn from here is that you're supposed to be trusting in the Lord, man. Because let's get it, all right? And this is later on down the line of history, but this is First Maccabees, all right? And this is what Judas Maccabees had said when the armies of the Greeks had compassed him, all right? So this is First Maccabees 3:19. It says, for the victory of the battle standeth not in the multitude of an host, but strength cometh from heaven, all right? And that's one thing that our people did not realize at this time, all right? To no fault of their own, all right? They just, they were just weak, okay? All right? It says, for the victory of the battle standeth not in the multitude of an host, meaning armies, but strength coming from heaven, all right, which is the Lord. And the fact that they didn't, they seen all the miracles in Egypt, they seen all the miracles that the Lord has done, everything that he delivered us from, and if not, really, they should have seen it at this time, because he delivered us out of so many situations, and when you read the book of Judges, you see captivity after captivity, but salvation after, all these different captivities, okay? So our people at this point in time didn't understand that, the power comes from the heavens, man, and the Lord was dealing with us, all right? But Jake was not confident in the Lord. They didn't trust in the Lord, all right? Okay? They was really ignorant, towards his power and favor towards him, and, So it says, they come against us in much pride and iniquity to destroy us and our wives and our children and to spoil us. But we fight for our lives and our laws, right? And so Israel's had their back against the wall. So understand the fear that came, but also in the same breath, we had to look towards the Lord's salvation and what he has already proven to the children of Israel, and what they failed to realize, to really just trust in him because of what he has provided already, all right? So let's go back 1 Samuel 13 and 6. It says, when the men of Israel saw that they were in a strait, all right, meaning a difficult position, it says, for the people were distressed, Then the people did hide themselves in caves and in thickets and in rocks and in high places and in pits. And some of the Hebrews went over Jordan to the land of Gad and Gilead. As for Saul, he was yet in Gilgal, and all the people followed him trembling. All right, so he had soldiers and people following him, basically trembling, afraid. All right, and this pretty much determined his decision making. This skewed his decision making. This threw off his discernment. Okay, why? Because he didn't trust in the Lord. Rather, he trusted in the physical part that was taking place. All right, and that's why this is a spiritual warfare. Okay, it says, and he tarried 7 days, and the point is, it's a spiritual warfare because you're supposed to keep the, you're supposed to keep the prescribed way, so to speak. All right, you're supposed to follow this prescribed way. All right, which is his law. All right, keep his law, have faith in his law, trust in his law, and move accordingly. Okay, all right, not give up and do your own thing, which we're about to see. All right, so Salakia, it says, and he tarried 7 days. All right, according to the set time that Samuel had appointed. But Samuel came not to Gilgal, all right? And the people were scattered from him because he was given specific orders from Samuel. Saul was given specific orders from Samuel, okay? And I believe I got the order, all right? I think this is 1 Samuel, I believe 12. In fact, Salakia. So we'll just continue because I don't want to get lost. But yeah, so Samuel gave Saul specific orders, okay? And this is what Saul did, all right? Verse 9, this is 1 Samuel 13 and 9. It says, and Saul said, bring hither a burnt offering to me and peace offerings. And he offered the burnt offering. And it came to pass that as soon as he made an end of offering the burnt offering, behold, Samuel came, and Saul went out to meet him, that he might salute him. And Samuel said, what hast thou done? And Saul said, because I saw that the people were scattered from me, and that thou camest not within the days appointed, all right, and that the Philistines gathered themselves together at Michmash. Therefore said I, the Philistines will come down now upon me to Gilgal, and I have not made supplication unto the Lord. I forced myself therefore, here's the point, I forced myself therefore and offered a burnt offering. All right, and Samuel said to Saul, thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy power, which he commanded thee, for now would the Lord have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever. All right, so I'm going to stop there. So Saul is giving Samuel strict commandment, and Saul took it upon himself because of his situation, all right, with the multitude of Israelites that followed him that was trembling. He reacted off of that, all right, and pretty much he didn't follow the guidelines, all right. He didn't follow the guidelines, and he pretty much didn't keep the commandment of the Lord, okay. Which in turn, all right, led to his insubordination. All right, he was willfully disobeying a standard or protocol. Okay, all right, despite the warnings. Okay, he knew, even though he was 2 years into his rulership, he's king, so he already knows somewhat, of the order. All right, he can't, and the transgression lies in him, making a sacrifice without a Levitical priest there. All right, Saul was a Benjamite. Okay, he was a Benjamite, and he wasn't supposed to make that sacrifice. Okay, And what basically what we're seeing here, all right, is his mulishness or his stubbornness, all right, due to him, due to a situation. In most situations, brothers haste above, the Creator, all right, and he was supposed to simply wait on Samuel to come and make the sacrifice, all right, and just because he's seen that, you know, certain things start to tick up as far as with the Philistines, putting themselves in battle array against them and his people trembling, he made, he had made that lack of judgment, all right? He took it upon himself to do his own thing, which was his transgression. And, we say that to say, I say that to say this, basically, wait upon the Lord, man, all right? All right, so I'll start with Proverbs 3 and 5 really quick. All right, and these are just things. This is not how. I mean, basically, you can take this as, how to not disappoint the Lord, man. All right, always keep the protocol. Stay the protocol. Stay to the script, man. Or else, the Lord, basically, you're going to displease the Lord. All right, so Salakia, Psalms 3 and 5, it says, trust in the Lord with all thine heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. All right, and that's where pretty much Saul failed at. Okay, he didn't lean upon the Lord. All right, he leaned upon his own understanding. Okay, and that's, you might have a situation in life where you don't fully understand what to do, but if you wait it out and keep your course, keep the course of the river, so to speak, and do the right thing according to the order that is given, all right, of course you're not going to fail. All right, this is Psalm 37 and 3. It says, trust in the Lord and do good, so shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. All right, and so you're going to be kept, all right, and you're going to be sustained if you follow his order, and that's just simple, All right, so this is Psalms 33 and 21. It says, for our heart shall rejoice in him, because we have trusted in his holy name. All right, and see, a lot of you people, you don't trust in his name, man. And that applies to today, what we go through, what we see on a modern day term with you Israelites, right? You don't trust in the Lord, okay? You don't fully consider the Lord's sayings, okay? And you go about to establish your own way. And it may seem right unto you, as the scriptures say, but these be the ways of death, okay? As the scriptures say, there's a way that seemeth right unto a man, but are the ways of death, okay? And that's tried and true, man, all right? Verse 22, let thy mercy, O Lord, be upon us according as we hope in thee. You see? And so the Lord is gonna show mercy depending on how much hope you have in him. All right? If you have no hope in him, he ain't gonna show you no mercy. Okay? But did he show Saul mercy? He did. In fact, he did. All right? Even though he went off. All right? And there's 3 different occasions. But the first occasion, the Lord already knew right out the bat that this guy, he ain't gonna get it. All right? And if he offended in that, how much more in something else? This was just keeping the commandment. This was just simply waiting on the priest to come to sacrifice. All right? Because he couldn't do it himself. He's a Benjamite, for God's sake, All right? And plus, he's unclean because of war. All right? He's in the middle of a war. All right? So Proverbs 28 and 13, and it reads, it says, he that covereth his sins shall not prosper, but whoso confesseth and forsaketh them shall have mercy. And that's pretty much what Saul did. He pretty much confessed immediately, because that right there, you can tell that he was pretty much being willful, and he really didn't know what he was doing. He was just doing things. based on his own will. All right. But you're going to overthrow yourself with that, man. You know, and you don't want to be like that. All right. And that's why we have this for an example. Romans 15, if I haven't read it already, and 4, it says, for whatsoever things were written aforetime were written for our learning, that we through patience and comfort of the scriptures might have hope. All right. So we might have hope. All right. So we learn from the mistakes from our fathers, our forefathers. And what do? We try to do better. All right. All right. So we can add to our hope. All right. So we can add these virtues to our hopes by not making the same mistakes that our foreparents have made. But in this case, he was being Mul-ish. He was being stubborn. All right. Which I would like to keep pointing that out. Having that willful spirit. All right. And a lot of you upstarts, you have it as well. Because, you know, like I said, Saul wasn't too well off into his rulership, and already he did something to offend the Lord. So let's go back. This is 1 Samuel. Let me see. Salakia 13. And I'm going to pick up at Salakia 13. It says in Psalm, Salakia, 1 Samuel 13 and 13. And Samuel said to Saul, thou hast done foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy power, which he commanded thee. For now would the Lord Yahweh have established thy kingdom upon Israel forever. All right. And the Lord's intentions is that he definitely was, you know, he was thinking high, like Yahweh does anyway, right? That he was going to, you know, the king that he was going to set up over Israel was going to be, you know, the king for eternity, you know. But Saul pretty much failed at that chance, all right, because of his insolence, all right, his stubbornness, or his insubordination, all right, due to his own, you know, willfulness, you know. So he was, of course, he was, you know, naive. He really didn't know what it took, all right. It says, but now thy kingdom shall not continue. The Lord hath sought him a man after his own heart, and the Lord hath commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept that which the Lord commanded thee. And Samuel arose and got him up from Gilgal and unto Geba of Benjamin, and Saul numbered the people that were present with them, about 600 men. All right. And so that's pretty much, you know, why Saul went off. All right. Because really he didn't have faith. Okay. All right. So the next precept is Psalm 62. All right. And 8. All right. And how does it apply to us? We ought to have faith and fear, and to do things in the right order, man. You know, and don't be an insubordinate. Don't be somebody that willfully do things because they think they know what the hell they're doing. And that's pretty much Saul's case, you know. Let me see, Sirach 2 and 2. All right. What you know from this. All right. And at this time, you know, we weren't even promised to be kings and priests. All right, he was just a king. He wasn't coming in any priestly order. All right, so he had no right to sacrifice. All right, Sirach 2 and 2, it says, Sirach 2 and 1, my son, if thou come to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation, set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make not haste in time of trouble. And that's what we see happen with Saul. He made haste in time of trouble because, you know, the Israelites, they seen the numbers of the Philistines, they hid themselves, and they got afraid. We understand, you know, and that's just our primitive nature. But in the same time, it says what? Sirach 2 and 2. Salakia, it says, set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make not haste in time of trouble. Cleave unto him and depart not away, that thou mayest be increased at thy last end, all right? And so that's the lesson pretty much we learn, hold on to the Lord at our last end. So we might be, because the Lord might have, which he already did, he already saved Saul, so we don't have an example of him falling because of him falling short, but the Lord having mercy, and so whenever we fall short, the Lord is still having mercy, because our intent is to what? To finish what we've started, to finish this work. We're not going to be perfect, but we do learn, all right? And that's why we do have these scriptures. So Psalm 62:8, and it reads, it says, trust in him at all times. Ye people, pour out your heart before him. The Most High is a refuge for us, all right? And that's the truth, man, all right? The Lord is a refuge for the lowly, all right? And the Lord doesn't care what your numbers are, all right? He only cares about, as far as the truth, all right? And, that righteous sacrifice, okay? And with that, Lord willing, this was edifying. Like I said, this is part of one of the 3-part series that I'm going to do with Saul, and his transgressions, and pretty much just, slightly brush the surface on how it applies today, if anybody can take anything from it, So arrogancy, not arrogancy, but subordinate. Don't be a subordinate, neither through ignorance, and that comes from not being circumspect and not being fully aware of what's fully required, And so if this is any consolation to anybody, Lord willing, it was edifying. Shalom.